Hey guys, Metatrend's Mark here again. So I'm here to talk to you about something here today called accelerated destruction. Now this is actually a phrase I've coined. All right, so we've already done some videos on creative destruction. If you have any questions about that, you can read books from Clayton Christensen out of Harvard on how every organism and organization is actually dying a slow death. For the organizational side, it's called creative destruction. So, but if you hang in there till the end of this video, you'll know the only real villain in your future, and frankly, how to future-proof your business model going forward. So, if you're a college student, a business owner, a business executive, it's something you want to pay attention to. All right, so what is accelerated destruction? Well, first we have to understand what creative destruction is. So creative destruction is that every single organization is actually dying a slow death. So if you were to compare it to biology, what we're looking at here is every organism is dying a slow death. That's called entropy. So the physical equivalent would be like rust. So things are dying slowly. It's one of the reasons why you exercise, one of the reasons why you take vitamins, you take care of yourself, what have you. This is all to avoid entropy. So the organizational equivalent is called creative destruction, but I'm coined this phrase called accelerated destruction. And the reason why, in fact, I think it might even be the next book I write, is the reason why is because there's an unholy trinity in your life. See, politicians and the press would have you believe that there's actually villains out there that you need to pay attention to and be wary of, and that they can be the rescuer in your world so you can sit back and play the victim. The real truth of it is most of the things that are covered in the press are really a false narrative about how the world is actually worsening. In fact, Steven Pinker wrote a phenomenal book called The Better Angels of Our Nature about how we are basically eliminating extreme poverty in the world, and world crime is down significantly in the last 20 years. In fact, this is the period we're currently enjoying, is the days of wine and roses, especially from a violence perspective. We have the lowest level of violence in the history of the world, even going back to the fossil record. His next book, which is I think publishing just as this video will be produced, is called Enlightenment Now, where he echoes a lot of the same sentiments in Better Angels of Our Nature and kind of takes it one step further about what's the good that's going to happen going forward. However, that does ignore, because it's not his wheelhouse, this one real villain. See, there's an unholy trinity in your life, assuming that you're not a startup. If you're a startup, you're actually benefiting from this. So Sand Hill is the equivalent of Wall Street in Silicon Valley. That's where the majority of all venture capitalists are that fund startups. And what startups are attempting to do is to add intellectual property, AI, machine learning, what have you, to an app or some type of digital function to put old line brick and mortar companies out of business. So war is a cliche, but let's just say that what basically we're dealing with here is that venture capitalists will fund, let's say, 100% of startups, and of that percentage, let's just say 100, and then we'll break it down into a percentage. 5% of them will actually succeed in giving what venture capital is looking for, which is a 20x multiple in 10 years. That's a combined 14.4% compounded rate of return over 10 years. That's to not just double the company, but double it once again in 10 years. Now that's actually quite doable for a lot of startups, but not all. The better question at this point from this video is understanding what does the other 95% do once they fail. They try it again, and then try it again, and then try it again until venture capital stops funding them. So what you have is this unholy trinity that I'm referring to is Stanford teaching people how to do these types of startups to put other businesses out of business. You have the startups attempting to do that, and you have venture capital funding it. So picture like they're like the equivalent of antibodies to the rest of our businesses that are the equivalent of bacteria. So they are eventually going to put us out of business. So what we need to do is to stay nimble. Do scenario planning, not strategic planning, but scenario planning. What if, what if, what if, what if, what if? Because if you owned a taxi medallion in New York City 5 years ago, you might have paid as much as $1.5 million for it. Now it's worthless because of Uber. So that's disruptive technologies. So how can we stay ahead of that is we have to stay nimble mentally. And we have to understand the knowable future. That's where the book comes in. So we'll be just doing some deep dive videos on this. But the future breaks down into the knowable and the unknowable. The unknowable is covered at nauseum on CNN, CNBC, and in the news because it's dramatic, it's compelling, and scary. Well, it turns out the modern human is so predictable that decades in advance it borders on boring. So what's terrible for the news, because it doesn't make news, doesn't sell papers, is great for us from a strategic planning perspective and being strategists. So you have limited time, energy, and resources. You want to make sure that your company's pointed in right direction. That's where the book comes in, Metatrends and the Next Economy. And we cover that in Chapter 9 about what strategies you should be putting into place to stave off creative destruction, or in this case, really what's called accelerated destruction. And maybe even to become those accelerated destructors and that disruptive technology, so that this way that you can eat someone else's lunch. So everything you need in a one flight read, Metatrends and the Next Economy. Thanks for watching.